Hiya, welcome to the Audionautix channel where we talk about dumb historical events in a historically dumb world. Now, bit of a random question here, but what if you could design and construct a building? Like, what would you do with it? Like, what designs would you create? At first, you might just think of a normal rectangular building with some flourishes here and there to add some flair to it. But that would be doing a great disservice to 1, the tools you have at your disposal, and 2, the sort of wacky designs you can get away with. Now, for example, what if you wanted your building to be really top-heavy instead of just a traditional rectangle? Secondly, what if you wanted your building to kind of have a little curve to it, you know, instead of just standing completely vertically? And 3, what if you wanted to give it the ability to make the sun into a deadly laser? If you for some reason want to build a building like this, then you're already out of luck because it's already been built. Yes, you heard me right. A building with these exact specifications has already been constructed and unleashed upon the British public, who were inconvenienced for years before its reign of terror came to an end. So how did this building come to be? How was it conceived, constructed, and set loose upon an unwilling public who thought its design was ugly and who basically hated everything about the building? These are the questions I aim to answer as I dive into a kind of unique and bizarre chapter of British architectural history. And so join me as I tell you the story of the Fryscraper. Before it became the Fryscraper and a general scourge of London, 20th Fenchurch Street was originally a 25-story building with a pretty distinct roof, designed by architect William Rogers. It was noted at the time for being quite a revolutionary building, but apart from that, it quickly faded into the background of British architecture, being just another building. It didn't negatively affect its surrounding areas in any significant ways, as far as I'm aware, which is a far cry from things to come. Fast forward that a little bit to 2004, when an architect named Raphael Vignoli decided he wanted to add a brand new, distinctive addition to London's skyline. In order to do this, he wanted both the visual appearance of the building along with the contents of the building to be unique. And so in order to do that, visually, he made the building pretty top-heavy, along with a little bit of the building jutting out as we go up the levels. But what can Raphael Vignoli do to the interior of 20th Fenchurch Street? You know, what can he add to the interior of the building in order to make it as memorable as it can to any potential visitor? Got it! What about a sky garden? That's right, for the main attraction of the building, he decided to have a 3-story sky garden / food court on the top 3 levels of 20th Fenchurch Street, which is, in my opinion, a pretty cool idea. The sky garden would provide greenery, beautiful scenery, and a food court where everyone can have fine dining in and, you know, just drink and eat and have a good time. And I'll be completely honest with you, if there was a place around me that was like that, I would go to that place in a heartbeat, but unfortunately that isn't so. So sad. Regardless of, you know, my personal woes, reporters at the time looked upon Raphael Vignoli's plans with curiosity. They named the building the Walkie-Talkie due to its, you know, resemblance to the cellular device. And for Raphael Vignoli, everything seemed to be going well. Here was a unmistakably distinctive addition to London's skyline. And in 2006, after his plans were approved, Raphael Vignoli sat back and watched as 20th Fenchurch Street began its construction. Even though the plans for Raphael Vignoli's new vision for 20th Fenchurch Street were approved, obviously in order to do that, the old one had to be demolished. And so William's old 20th Fenchurch Street design was taken down, a process that was fully completed in 2008. In 2009, workers would begin to lay the groundwork for eventual construction. 2 years later, in 2011, the basement and core of the building would be worked on, with the core above floor level as the year ended. 2012 saw the core being topped out and surrounded with structural steelwork, which would consequently also be topped out by the end of that year. 2013 saw the majority of the inner work being done, with the floors, elevators, and safety features being built. Finally, in 2014, finishing touches were added, and it received its first tenants in May of that year. By August, it was fully completed. However, by then, the chaos had already begun. Before we get into the more hilariously bad problems that the walkie-talkie had, let's look at the most innocuous issue that a lot of people looked at when it was first conceived. And that was, to many, the walkie-talkie just looked ugly. Even though the media had called it the walkie-talkie, a lot of people didn't see that as a favorable comparison. Even though I find nothing inherently wrong with the walkie-talkie's design, I do agree that the weird shape and its coloring do make it stand out compared to the rest of the London skyline, and not in a particularly positive way. However, even though that is a legitimate concern that people had with the building, it is by far the least consequential compared to all the other hilariously dumb and bad stuff that resulted as part of the building's design, which we'll be looking at later after this brief intermission.
Another intermission? I'm getting tired of this. Hey, let's turn to something good. How about this one?
Death Valley, California holds the record for having the highest temperature ever recorded on Earth's surface, with a subsection of it, Furnace Creek, having a temperature of 57 degrees Celsius at its hottest period. Now, it's hard for the vast majority of people on planet Earth, including me, to quantify how truly hot 57 degrees Celsius is. Just compared to the global temperature of 15 degrees Celsius, you can see that there is a wide gap difference, there is a wide temperature difference between the two values. And so, as you can probably surmise, the human body does not do well under 57 degree weather. That's why there are signs plastered all around Death Valley, California, warning people not to walk outside during specific times when the place is the most hot. So cool, Radicus, good to know. How does this relate at all to, this video specifically? And in order to understand that, let's go back to London in September of 2013, where the streets below the walkie-talkie were, guess it, 117 degrees Celsius. That means that during September of 2013, the streets below the walkie-talkie, this random patch of London, ended up being hotter than Death Valley, California during its peak. So how did this happen? Well, in order to know how this happened, we must first look at the shape of the building. Due to the concave shape of one of the walkie-talkie's sides, when sunlight hit the building, the rays would converge, making the small area that was hit by this converged rays of sunlight much hotter than normal, resulting in the insane temperatures that we discussed earlier. This means that for roughly 2 hours every single day, when the sun was in the correct position, the walkie-talkie would shine a direct wave of heat, roughly 6 times hotter than direct sunlight onto the streets below. As you can probably imagine, the residents below suffered a lot because of this. News reporters below reported feeling their hair follicles burning due to the direct heat. A news reporter used the heat directed from the walkie-talkie to help him fry an egg. The walkie-talkie damaged several stores, breaking tiles and burning rugs,
resulting in various screens being set up to protect shops from the walkie-talkie's heat.
And also partially melting a Jaguar that was unfortunate enough to stand in its way. No, not the animal, the car. The owner was also given roughly £1,000 as compensation. Due to all the heat-related achievements that the walkie-talkie now had under its belt, the media gave it 2 new names. 1, the Walkie-Scorchy, and 2, the Fryscraper. Public opinion at large was one of bewilderment and honestly disbelief that this could have happened. At this point, the walkie-talkie's image was thoroughly tarnished. 20th Fenchurch Street, which was supposed to be a unique and innovative idea, ended up being a bit of a laughingstock, honestly, which was viewed by the rest of the British public as a failure of British architecture. And as if its reputation couldn't get any worse, there was one more issue. But in order to get to that, let's segue a bit and talk about wind. Okay, now let's talk a little bit about how wind works. Wind is essentially caused by differences in air pressure, which causes the air to move and therefore results in wind. Now, normally when wind hits a building, it has to move around the building in order to proceed, and therefore naturally some of the wind is directed downwards in what is known as a downward draft. Due to the top-heavy nature of the Fryscraper and the curve that was built in order to accommodate its additional mass at the top, when wind hits the curved surface of the Fryscraper, a lot of that wind is directed downwards, a disproportionate amount compared to a normal building due to its curved shape. Thus, the downward drafts near the base of the Fryscraper were particularly strong. Eyewitnesses reported seeing the wind damage local shop signs, knock people over, and topple trolleys. It seemed that no matter what the weather condition was, the Fryscraper was going to cause problems for people. During the warmer, sunnier months, it was going to direct massive heat waves onto the people below. And during the colder, windier months, it was going to direct massive downdrafts that would generally damage property and inconvenience people, while also being a general eyesore to a lot of the population for the entire year. This could not continue. The Fryscraper needed to be fixed immediately. The city quickly recognized the many issues that were caused by the Fryscraper's design, and along with mounting pressure to do something about it, they acted. As a result, the Fryscraper was mentioned by name during a London committee report on wind impacts from bulking development schemes, while solutions were also simultaneously being done to address the solar glare. A building firm named Lois plus Aberlode would end up coming to the solutions to many of these problems and would document the whole process on their website, which I think is an incredibly interesting read, and you guys should check it out after this video. I highly recommend it. Okay, back to how the Fryscraper's issues were solved. Firstly, a giant construction cloth was placed over the curved side of this Fryscraper in order to act as a temporary solution while a more permanent solution could be found. The permanent solution ended up being a set of louvers, which are basically just a series of open flaps that are designed to keep out heavy rain and sunshine from a particular area. Once they installed the louvers in, the amount of sunlight that was converged by the Fryscraper was reduced significantly, essentially decimating its potential to glare massive amounts of sunlight onto the British public below and solving all of its heat issues in one fell swoop. Now, after all the heat issues of the Fryscraper were fixed, there were only issues pertaining to the downward draft that were left, and it was going to be a bit of a challenge for the city to fix. After all, the shape of the building itself went against them when it came to stopping downward drafts, and so how are they going to solve this? Well, at first they planted some trees, and then... Wait, that's it? Yeah. That seems to be it. Even though those changes to me seem minuscule, there doesn't seem to be any other reports of substantial amount of downward draft coming from the Fryscraper ever since these changes were implemented. Now, even though it is, in my opinion, a little bit anticlimactic, I believe one of the reasons why the downward drafts was able to be stopped so quickly with such minimal resources seemingly put into it was due to the fact that the louvers themselves also helped prevent the downward drafts from coming down. Because think about it, due to the positioning of the louvers, they should theoretically be able to disrupt the wind flow from the top of the building to the bottom of the building, therefore reducing the downward draft. That's just my personal theory. I have no qualifications in this whatsoever, so take it with a grain of salt. That's just what I think, okay? Cheers. Even though it is sadly not even close to being the most destructive building out there, 20th Fenchurch Street stands out due to the sheer hilarity of its flaws caused by a lack of foresight during conception and construction. And what better way to celebrate its strange legacy than with an award? That's right, on the 1st of September 2015, 20th Fenchurch Street won the Carnbuckle Cup, a prestigious award given to the ugliest building in Britain built in the past year, though I highly suspect other factors contributed to its win. If you don't get how wild that is, there were approximately 150,000 buildings built from 2014 to 2015, and 20th Fenchurch Street beat out all of them. Furthermore, it highlighted the importance of considering environmental factors during construction and set guidelines for safer urban development that are still followed in Britain to this day. What I'll say is this: at the end of the day, Raphael Viñoly kinda got what he wanted. 20th Fenchurch Street, far from being just another building in London, is now a widely recognized symbol of architectural history, and the goofy issues it caused are documented countless times in online circles, which I will also add to with this video. The impact that 20th Fenchurch Street had on the architectural world is irreplaceable and unique, especially in Britain, and it has been my utmost pleasure to tell its story and potentially bring more eyes and attention to what is, in my opinion, a very funny part of architectural history. Anyways, thank you so much for watching to the end of this video, and I hope you all have a wonderful evening.